Hello and welcome back to the Cash vs. Trash podcast with your hosts Rob and
Demi, where we watch the highest and lowest grossing movie of each year from 1970 to 2021 picked at random, then decide if they deserve the title of either Cash or Trash.
That's right. And just before we get into the movie for this week, we've got a little bit of housekeeping from last week's episode. Gore Verbinski only directed Pirates of the Caribbean At World's End.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't write down the writer's name, but it was a bunch of people. Doesn't really matter. And Keira Knightley was 22.
Yeah.
Which means in the first movie she was 18, which absolutely blew me away when I read that.
After we recorded the episode, we had a look at how old she is.
Yeah.
Because I said she was 37, and then, we worked it out that...
37 now.
Yeah. So she was really, really young.
Yeah, 18, either probably during filming and release of the first one, and then around the 21-22 mark for this because Dead Man's Chest and At World's End were filmed back to back.
Yeah.
So still crazy young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that she was maybe like 25, 26. That's how old I'm 26 now. She seemed like that old. And then I think that the character is supposed to be a few years older than that as well.
Yeah.
And she played that to a T. So good on her.
Wow.
Anyway, had to get that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And on to the subject of this video, which is... video. I've been watching too much YouTube. Anyway, on to the subject of this podcast. We're continuing on with 2007. This is the lowest grossing movie out of the top 200 in a fair fight, released to enough countries to have an impact and have a go at potentially being the top grossing.
Yeah.
That's the way we look at it. We were thinking about going all the way to the bottom, but there's like thousands of movies and they only get released in like one small town sometimes.
Like one of them, only one person watched it.
Yeah.
And it made like $12. So
yeah, and the point of this is to figure out why a movie was the lowest grossing.
Yeah.
And it
That
wouldn't
would be
be
easy.
much. Yeah, it wouldn't be much of a point if only one county in America was able to go and see it. You know, it's not exactly fair. So anyway, it is Daddy Day Camp, an American family comedy, obviously 2007, and sequel to the financial hit, but it was also critically mixed to negative, Daddy Daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally really enjoyed that movie.
So did I. I didn't know that until I was looking into this. Anyway, starring Cuba Gooding Jr. for some reason as Charlie.
You might recognize him from Jerry Maguire or the American Horror Story Roanoke season.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a million other things.
Yeah.
We just picked, two or so.
Yep.
But he's a household name, I would imagine.
I think
Boys
so.
in the Hood, A Few Good Men. He was O.J. Simpson in American Crime Story. Yeah, just a bunch of stuff. Paul Ray as Phil.
You might recognize him from True Grit or W, which is the George Washington...
No. George W. Bush.
George W. Bush
Yeah.
movie.
This guy and pretty much every other cast member makes sense for this movie.
Yeah.
The only one that stands out is Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I can't remember him in True Grit, and I haven't seen W. So
Yeah.
Lachlan Monroe as Lance.
You might have seen him in Scary Movie or the recent TV show Peacemaker.
Yeah, he's another guy who's just been in... You've seen him pop up pretty much everywhere, mostly in TV. He's pretty dynamic, he just a good, steady worker. Same as, like, Paul Ray and Richard Gant, I feel.
Yeah.
Speaking of Richard Gant, he is in it as Buck.
You might have seen him in Norbit or Jason Goes to Hell.
One interesting thing, Cuba Gooding Jr. and Richard Gant were both in Norbit, which came out the same year as this, which is Eddie Murphy's, one of his movies where he plays, like, 5 different characters.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how the conversations went down, where he was the main star and face of the first movie, and then they're the two leads of this movie,
Yeah.
and whether or not they spoke about that is just
Yeah, I'd say so.
for sure. I mean, he was probably just ragging on him, especially
Yeah.
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was directed by Fred Savage, known for mostly directing TV shows, episodes of TV shows. I don't say that in a bad way, but like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Modern Family. And he was a child actor mostly, and he acted in The Wonder Years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too familiar with that, but I have heard it mentioned before.
Yeah. So the budget of this movie was $6 million. It grossed domestically $13 million, internationally $5 million, so a worldwide total of about $18.2 million. Its opening weekend domestically, it made $3.4 million, and all the other countries' opening weekend info wasn't there, so we don't know how much internationally it made opening weekend.
It doesn't matter too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of that, it was financially successful, only slightly though.
Yeah.
Because that would have just covered the budget and marketing and everything, because this was marketed pretty heavily from what I remember. It was all, Daddy Daycare and they're back, but Eddie Murphy and Jeff Garlin aren't in it.
Yeah.
They're replaced by Cuba Gooding Jr. and I don't know what deal with the devil they made to get him in this movie. I mean, I know he did a bunch of crap around this time, and Paul Ray is replacing Jeff Garlin. Steve Zahn isn't in it. He played Marvin, I think. Instead, it's some guy who I'm not even going to waste my time looking up his name, because he doesn't even have any plot points.
Yeah.
Like, I thought, they're just replacing the character. Cool, he'll probably be the same, but he is the same guy, different name, but the character is identical, and there's no story arc for him.
Yeah, he's just kind of there.
Yeah, and he gets introduced and doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So, feel bad for that actor, but yeah.
It was 1% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Deservedly.
Yeah, with a 38% audience rating.
I get that, because there's a lot of dumb, stupid people out there who go, oh yeah, it's pretty good, I think that's alright, that's pretty funny, when it's just crap.
It is so bad. Alright, so Charlie and Phil run the best home daycare business in town, but can they run a summer day camp? After a blunder in communication, the two daddy daycarers end up co-owning and running Camp Driftwood, which has fallen on hard times. Way out of their depth in the outdoors and constantly being harassed by their rival Camp Canola, led by Lance, which is Charlie's childhood nemesis. Charlie enlists the help of his distant father and Marine, Colonel Buck. While the two men butt heads, they must also figure out how to whip the kids into shape for the Olympiad and show them how to also have fun.
I wrote the summary this week, which is my first time. It was harder this week, because normally I help Demi out. It was harder this week to try and to accurately summarize this movie than it was Pirates of the Caribbean 3.
Even Pirates of the Caribbean, we were struggling.
Yeah, but with that, the movie has a consistent tone, story, development, everything, and you can go, well, this group is trying to get this, and these are the people that they're up against. Easy as.
Yeah.
This movie is just, then this happens, 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 and some things are connected, mostly it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so much happens, but not in a good way.
Things are introduced, but they don't
go anywhere.
Really either come back or they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
There's just trope after trope and cliche and I'm not super against cliches. Cliches are cliches because they're popular. I've said cliches too many times. But tropes and cliches, they exist because they're popular and they work well. But when that's all your movie is, it's just garbage random scenes mixed in with, there are some good bits in this movie.
Yeah.
But, like, oh man, you've really got to search through, like, you have to frame by frame it just to find the good stuff.
There's things in this movie that should have been a big deal that were just completely brushed over.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
very confusing.
And things, like what we were saying before, that come in and you think that's where the story's going.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the story was going in, not the opposite direction, but, like, a much better direction.
Yeah.
And it just sort of dragged that storyline where I thought it was going just along and didn't really do anything with it.
Yeah.
Normally with cheap, crappy sequels, I would just say, if you've seen the first movie, you've seen this one. But it's fairly different
Yeah.
while also aping the original.
Yeah.
It's got all the same, the bank is trying to, and as opposed to the childcare association, whatever the hell they're called in the States, coming in and whatever at the behest of the villain. In this, it's the bank
Yeah.
justifiably going, hey, you guys haven't been paying your debt, so we're going to shut you down. And they're like, just extend it and whatever. And the bank's like, yeah, cool, all right, we'll extend it for another month. That has never happened before, and ever.
Yeah.
That's a movie thing. Don't expect that to happen in real life.
Yeah, no.
And it's a rival camp which has all the money, but they don't actually care about kids, but these guys care about kids. And even the I missed scene is copied. I don't care about spoilers for this movie. This movie sucks.
Okay, I was going to say, don't give too much away, but...
I do not watch this movie.
Yeah.
If you care about your sanity and your well-being as a human, do not watch this movie.
I would rather watch The Choice or Cecil B. Demented or even Bad Moon
I would
than watch this movie.
all three of those on a loop for a full day before I watch this again. I will never, ever watch this movie ever again.
Yeah, no.
Cecil B. Demented, I'll happily watch again. I find it interesting, even if it is bad. The Choice, I'm specifically Demi, I'm talking
yes.
to you. You could probably rope me into watching that movie again for a laugh, like we could play a drinking game.
Yeah.
And Bad Moon, it's bad, but I like it. This movie, however, is just boring crap.
I kind of just wanted to tear my eyes and ears out watching this
Just
movie.
the one?
No, both.
It's just soulless.
Yeah.
It's not. We say this a bit, it's not so bad, it's good, or anything like that. But it is just terrible and bad, and
boring as shit.
And I feel bad for the kids that are in it because they don't know that they're in a piece of crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't just heavily spoil it right away. And if you like cheesy crap, it's not even that cheesy. If you
it's like cliche, stereotypical movie.
Yeah, we'll at the very end, because this is the lowest grossing episode, we'll do like something that we should have been doing earlier, which was like a comparison, a proper comparison between the two and all that sort of stuff. And there are a few other movies where this has just clearly taken those things out of those movies and just gone, yeah, I'll do this. I can do this. But yeah, this is utter. I'm not going to say it yet. I won't say the word, but this is utter crap.
Yeah.
This is rubbish. Mm-hmm. This is garbage.
Well, we'll do the normal thing. You'll hear the jingle and then we'll move on.
Yes. And then we'll be full on spoilers, but who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Spoiler time. Full on spoilers now. Although, as I just said a minute ago, who fucking cares? Because this movie is so predictable and lame. And you think it's going to go one predictable way that would be acceptable, but no, it goes into a different predictable way that's not acceptable. But, spoiler the ending, as I usually do. apparently the lesson of this movie is it's okay to cheat in a competition as long as the other person is cheating.
It
Because
outsmarts the
oh,
cheaters.
you're outsmart.
Yeah.
They just cheat.
Yeah.
The one kid vomits in the tug of war, which causes them to lose. And another team, another one,
Sprays the skunk smell.
yeah, because he has no
all
sense
on him.
of smell,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
knocks out. But they would just sub somebody else in. That's not how wrestling works.
Yeah.
If in the UFC, if somebody came out smelling really bad and the other person passed out because of it, they wouldn't go, "Oh, okay, he wins now." They'd be like, "Oh, I guess you're disqualified for like germ warfare or some crap." Like what? What the fuck is? Anyway, I did like where the bully rang a kid splashed pee all over the shithead kid.
Yeah, but the way he went about it was so weird.
It was
He's
very
like, I've been holding this in all night.
because he normally pees the bed.
Yeah, but it was like midday.
That is, yeah. That's this movie summed up though. Just people saying shit, saying lines that don't really mean anything or matter, saying and doing things that don't have an effect on the world around them. They just happen. You know,
They don't make sense.
I don't understand the timeline of this movie
Yeah.
because I would figure that the Olympiad would happen at the end of summer,
Yeah.
but
It's
It-
like on day 4.
well, it feels I thought it was like maybe a fortnight, but especially considering the skunk is still in the destroyed building
Yeah.
where our
true.
mate crashes the bus into.
Oh my god. Fucking bus crash.
It somehow doesn't immediately, like, that place should have just been covered in red tape. That's
Yeah.
it. Cops come in, they're all arrested.
Yep.
You know.
Kids go to hospital, get checked up. Like that wasn't just a little bump. He
No, that was-
crashed the bus.
I actually thought, oh, this is gonna like pivot, like that bus crash is gonna be significant, and that's gonna cause some ramifications. Nah, the kids all get off the bus. They're not like, oh my god, we almost just died.
Yeah, and then the next time we see the bus, it's just like the mirror's hanging off or whatever, but they've sort of
There was
fixed it
some
up.
wood in the like radiator, like
Yeah.
the front grill part.
But they should not be driving that bus anymore.
Mm-mm.
And
That
the
guy
kids should have gone
especially.
straight home,
Yep.
called the parents.
That's what I'm saying. The cops should have just bulldozed. They should have gone, nah, that's it. Bank could have come in. Yep, cool. Sell it to canola. Bulldoze it over.
Yeah, but there's not even a single word about the bus crash. It's like, oh crap, another thing gone wrong. Oh my god.
And then the toilet explosion, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
It was very well done, practical, seemingly very unsafe. But I think that is something that they should be pat on the back for. Unfortunately, I forgot to write down the name of the special effects crew, but wherever they are, they should be commended for having the one or two good bits in this movie, and the rest is absolute crap.
Yeah, but even with the toilet explosion, it was way bigger than they thought. They actually got like hit with pieces of
Yeah.
wood. Yeah.
It they said it was supposed to blow, I can't remember how high, but I think he said 14 feet long.
Yeah.
Like it would blow stuff, or that was how big the blast is supposed to be. So for our everybody who's not in the US, that's like 20 something meters or 30 meters.
Don't ask me.
Oh no, I've got it mixed up with pounds and kilos. Feet to meters, I think it's 3 feet to a meter. So have I got that right? Yeah. So like 5 meters or so. Yeah. Sorry. I just was second guessing myself there way too much. Yeah, like 5 meters. That was way longer than 5 meters.
Yeah.
They were about 20 meters away by the look of it.
Yeah.
And bits of wood flew past them. And I was like, did they somehow like film that twice like they did with the Pirates of the Caribbean?
Or
Like,
did they actually get hit?
yeah, and you see the bits of wood flying past them, and then behind the scenes, Gooding Jr. and the other guy like jump past the camera,
Yeah.
and then they have to go and like they like reset and then continue their lines, which good on them, like
Yeah,
commitment,
yeah.
but like holy crap. Some of the kids said that the force of the blast pushed them backwards,
Wow.
and they were meters behind
Yeah.
Cuba Gooding Jr. So pretty big blast, and I think very well done.
How did Phil survive that?
He didn't, and he's a ghost for the rest of the movie. I don't think we ever see him eat for the rest of the movie. So he must
Maybe.
be a ghost.
Maybe.
Or maybe that snorkel mask protected
Oh my
him.
God.
So stupid. You know, we try our hardest to not take these movies as sequels or whatever. And, you know, this is normally a sequel, expands the world and continues things on with the characters. And this kind of does this, but this could just be its own movie.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have the words Daddy Daycare in it at all. Or any of that stuff. It doesn't feel like a continuation of the world. It is just a movie about a couple of guys who get a camp that they have to look after. And
Yeah.
the characters don't really feel the same. You know, Cuba Gooding Jr. kind of, because, you know, in the first one, Eddie Murphy, Charlie Hinton, I'll just use characters' names. Charlie Hinton was the beating heart of the movie and how he cares so much about kids and everything like that. And Phil Ryerson, the other guy, that's the character's name. In the first one, he was like, yeah, he was goofy and all that, but he wasn't just a full-blown idiot. He was kind of laid back and everything, but in this, he's just a moron.
Yeah.
Like, he just has no brain cells. Also, doesn't give a shit about his kid.
Not at all. I don't think we see him interact with his kid at all.
He gives him a little hug at the
Yeah.
same time as giving another kid a hug.
Yeah. In the beginning, I think they're both like standing in front of their children
Yeah.
at the camp.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's it. Like, we don't see him talk to his son at all.
Yep.
Not a single word.
Not when his son is the one who knocks out that other kid with the smell. He's not like, good job, son.
Yeah.
When his kid runs and hands a baton to Ben, there's no like, yeah, good job, you did better than I did when I was a kid. Or anything, like not even like a, just like your old man.
Yeah.
Nothing.
You wouldn't even know that they were
Mm.
father and son.
Yeah.
He interacts with the other Fat Ranger kid
Who
more.
you would think is his kid.
Yeah.
Because he's a fat kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Also, that kid doesn't change clothes the whole movie.
We forgot to go back and look whether or not they're different jerseys, but I think you're right.
Yeah, I
Because
think
I could
he's
have
just wearing
sworn
the same
one was
shirt.
an 09 and then the next one is a 7-2.
I think it was the same.
Maybe he just went back and washed it and put it back on.
Still, that's weird.
But
But the kids in this movie, like, they do a decent job. They're kids.
yeah, they're about as good as kids usually are.
Yeah.
You know, then there's no Dakota Fannings
No.
or Macaulay Culkin. Was he that good? He was pretty good. They're about as good as that, I think. Some of them. The
Yeah.
better ones are about on like a Macaulay Culkin Home Alone level. No, he was actually pretty good in that movie. The writing was better, actually, I think.
Yeah.
So that probably lends a fair bit of a hand. But
But the kids aren't terrible.
yeah, they're like, I should have just kept it as the kids are about as good as kids usually are. But I'm keeping that in.
The mullet kid was my favorite.
Oh, yeah. Air varmint.
Yeah. Cuba Gooding Jr. obviously amazing in this movie. The kid's pretty good.
Well,
Not amazing.
he does
but
what he can with the material that he has.
He's
but
obviously a good actor.
yes, he is, and you can see that, and he is in this role, and you can see that he's in it, and he's natural and everything, and that makes everybody else look like absolute shit, except maybe Buck.
Yeah, yeah. The worst actor in this movie was Paul Ray. I
Yeah.
could just tell the whole time he was acting. Like,
Well-
you're not supposed to watch a movie and go, oh, that person's acting. It's supposed to
Yeah.
look natural.
It seemed like he was getting the direction to just be a huge, dumb piece of shit.
Yeah.
And Cuba Gooding Jr. was getting the direction to be like funny and charming and a bit crazy, but you know, with a good heart and has like all this stuff to do. And then the other guy, Dale,
Yeah.
is just there. He doesn't really do much. He just
Yeah.
pretends to be the other guy from the first movie. And
But he does an okay job.
yeah, but it's like, why is he even there?
I don't even know.
Also, why is there only 3 and then later 4 adults? Even though when it's 4 adults to 6 kids, 7 kids, that makes sense. But when it's 3 adults to what?
Did you hear knocking?
Kind of, but I don't know. Do you want to check? All right, we're back. Sorry about that. Somebody was knocking on the door. Never mind.
Well, we thought somebody was knocking on the door, but they weren't.
Well, they don't need to know that. They could just leave in the mystery. Who was at the door? We'll pick up where we were. I believe it was Paul Ray.
Being crap.
Yeah. I feel bad just trashing people, especially when they're steady workers like most of the cast here. Because I really respect that, you know, they're just in things and they're doing things all the time. It's usually big stars that are the most fun to trash, like trashing Cuba Gooding Jr. for being in this movie, because what is he doing?
Well, okay, the character, Phil, was
a big dumb piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's...
embarrassing, really.
Yeah, it's like the kind of thing you wouldn't want on your resume. Whereas Cuba Gooding Jr. and Richard Gant and even Lance could use the acting that they did in this on their resume.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said his character name. Lachlan Monroe, who, I mean, he's been pretty successful. He's in a fair bit of Peacemaker from what I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was way different in that. He was very serious role. I can't remember, but it wasn't anything like this. He wasn't like the whole time,
just shouting nonsense.
So many scenes of him saying a terrible joke, then going
whoa! People might be listening with headphones here.
Yeah, sorry, headphone warning.
Too late.
Too late. I'll turn those bits down. That's what he does.
He shouts a lot.
Yeah, sorry. Just like that. Oh, fuck.
This episode's a mess.
But the movie's a mess.
Yeah.
I was sitting there the other day and I forgot that we watched this movie. And I was like, oh shit, we're supposed to do it on podcast stuff this week. Oh, fuck, we did Daddy Day Camp. We watched it and my brain was just like, emergency flush, get that shit out of here.
Erase that memory.
Oh. And then we watched it last night and I had to take notes on it, which burns it into my brain. And I'm like, just fuck.
This movie sucks.
It's just soulless.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not like we talked about the other bad movies we watched before and bad movies we both watched in general. And at least they're fun. And that, but this is like, and the scenes with the kids are usually pretty good because you can tell the kids are having fun.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like, just in this bad movie. Why am I doing this? Richard Gant as Buck is pretty good.
Yeah.
He comes across, in my opinion, as very caring, very paternal, and not at all how Charlie sees him, which I think works really well. And I thought the movie would have been... It would have been okay, as opposed to absolutely terrible, if it had delved more into, and it kind of did it, but not anywhere near good enough. If it had gone way into the Charlie doesn't really know what kids want, because he's a daycare educator, so he's always thinking of them as babies.
Yeah.
Especially his son, who was a daddy daycare kid. And if he just kept... turning them into little fucking snowflakes, that generation just can't handle anything. If he had done that, and then Buck comes in and goes, no, the most fun these kids have is when they're going wild and crazy and doing stuff, because that's what they come to camp for, is to get outdoors and run around and hurt themselves, and that's what being a kid is about. If they had gone down that road, this movie would have been much better, which is to say it would have been an okay movie.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
But there's just too much going on.
There's this supposed relationship that, or
lack of,
that his father is kind of a bad guy and didn't really treat him right as a kid,
Yeah.
then he's reluctant to get his father to come in to help.
Yeah.
But then when his dad does come, he's like the best character.
Yeah.
Especially with the kids.
Yes.
But we don't even see that tension and not
Yeah.
really between Charlie and Buck.
Oh, we do, but it's all coming from Charlie.
From Charlie, yeah.
Because, and they sort of go into it, but it's a lot of them talking about how it was as opposed to us seeing it, is Buck was that guy. He was, like they pretty much say it. Even Buck is like, yeah, I was like that. And as you get older, you remember things how you wanted them to be. And so then becoming a grandfather, and this is a really common thing, somebody becomes a grandparent and all those hard edges that they had with their own kids start to soften because they're older and wiser now, and they're looking at their kid has grown up and is now having their own kids.
Yeah.
And they're treating that kid how they either wanted to or saw in a better way than how they treated their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like, it's not always that extreme.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just little things, sometimes not much changes, whatever, but that's really common. The biggest cases you see are like, a really racist parent flipping that switch when their child has a baby with somebody of another another
color.
race. I don't know what
Race?
Race. I don't know what you're allowed to say anymore. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's like the usually like big news ones is like, former KKK member is totally okay with black grandchild. Which, not making light of any of that. It is just, I've seen pretty much that exact headline before. But in this, it's just, he was a hard ass to his son. And then as he got older, was like, he was just a kid. And then just convinced himself that he wasn't that bad. Even though he wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Charlie
we never see that.
Yeah.
They tell us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, do I even believe Charlie, or is his memory twisted as well?
I think they've gone in the opposite direction, but Charlie's never called out for it. Because his biggest problem is that he still sees his father as that guy when he's not.
Yeah.
But he's never called out on the fact that he has let these emotions stew for 30 years, which he does admit. But he's like, I've just had this in me. But it wouldn't have been how it is now 30 years ago. It would have just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And obviously Buck is going to treat Charlie like an adult when he becomes an adult and a parent. So he's going to be harder on him then.
Yeah.
Well, not harder on him, but more like, you got to do the right thing sort of way.
Yeah.
And Charlie's just like, my dad's not very nice to me.
And then he's overprotective and too soft and stuff with his child.
Which is why I thought it was going to go down that road. What is the better way? Wrapping your kid up in cotton wool and making sure that they know that you love them, and that means that you'll never let anything bad happen to them, or
be hard
and all that. Which I can't remember what we were watching, but it was I honestly I cannot remember what it was, but it was like, I want to make sure nothing bad ever happens to them, and then so I was overprotective, and the other person says to him, well, that's not very good because that means that nothing will ever happen to them.
Yeah.
So I can't remember what that was though. Certainly wasn't fucking Marmaduke. We watched Marmaduke recently. It was crap, but it was more interesting than this movie.
Yeah.
Not the live action one, the new one on
with Pete
Netflix.
Davidson.
Yeah, fucking hell. I hate this movie so much. I'm trying to talk about other movies. We didn't even show this movie to our kids.
Yeah, no.
Which we did with Toy Story 3, because when we figured when we have kids' movies come around, we should show it to our kids. I don't think that this is too old for them. We've got a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. So we should have shown it to them, but at the same time, we don't want them to be deranged psychopaths.
Yeah, I don't think they would have liked it.
Yeah. Fred Savage, not much to be said. He doesn't do anything noteworthy as a director in this. It's pretty crap. It feels like a TV show, which makes sense because he is a TV guy,
Yeah.
I feel. Apparently he was really great with the kids, as was Gooding Jr., but who cares? Like, good on him, but what, you put up with kids when you knew you were going to have to work with kids? Good job.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently the kids did get into, like, the craft services stable and eat all the sugar, so there was a shot in the behind the scenes of all the adults, like, going, all right, time to be quiet, settle down. So, yeah, there's not too much more to be spoken about with the acting and directing and whatever. Editing was whatever. It just felt like a lot of random scenes, loosely connected, and a lot of missing scenes.
Yeah, it wasn't a very good flow.
It was just, oh, and then this happened. Oh, and then this is happening. Oh, and we've
And here's
introduced this
this
character.
random thing.
And then they're gone.
Yeah.
Like Morty, who is the voice of Captain Knuckles. I can't remember his name. He's the voice of Captain Knuckles from the Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. An amazing show. Very good. Go watch that. His voice is exactly the same here. But yeah. I mean, what else do you say about any of that stuff? Nothing.
Yeah.
But we'll get into the meat and potatoes of it, the story. Right from the get-go, this movie is just starts on the wrong foot, as you would say. Got off on the wrong foot, whatever the saying is. It opens on a little girl trying to get a cake that says, Daddy Daycare Class of 2007.
Yeah.
And then she knocks the cake over, and then it comes to outside, and it says Daddy Daycare Rocks on a big banner, and there's all these kids acting like a bunch of fucking monsters. Which is a theme in this movie. Apparently kids in America are just evil.
Yeah, and crazy screaming monsters.
Yeah, just smashing shit around, which they will do if you don't stop them from doing it.
If you have more than 2 adults to, like, what was it, 35 kids?
I think it was 35, or let's say 35.
So that's like roughly 11 kids per adult. That ratio is dangerous.
And that's at the camp, but I'm talking about
at the daycare.
At the house daycare thing where they do it. But it looks like a nice house that you wouldn't have as a daycare, so I don't know. But anyway, they just are a bunch of fucking animals.
They're just insane.
Who keeps making these movies where they think that kids are just like a bunch of horrible
creatures?
Yeah, just monsters. Which, again, they will be if you don't raise them right. Which, apparently, if you send your kids to daycare every single day other than the weekend for a year, they'll turn into this. And then when summertime comes and they are off on school holidays, send them away to a day camp. Don't have to deal with your fucking kids. Oh, man. But, so, yeah, it starts off just crap. You're introduced to fake Phil and fake Charlie, and it's just whatever from there.
Yeah, so you could just cut out that whole part where she's getting the cake.
Oh, yeah.
Or cut out the part after that with all the kids going crazy, because it's like the same thing.
I think cut out the bit with her pulling the cake down, because she's not a character in the movie.
Yeah.
And just have the mum, Charlie's wife, I can't remember her name, come out with the cake and say, and you can figure out what happened yourself, because people have fucking brains and they can just see it and they can go, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Far out. There's not many main kids in this movie. We can rattle off their names or titles if we can remember them.
Yeah.
There's Ben, who's Charlie's son.
Yep.
There is
the mullet kid.
Yeah, I think they just call him Mullet.
Yeah.
There's Phil's son. I can't remember his name. Doesn't matter. He's a non-character. There's Becca, who is supposed to be a returning character. She was in the first movie, played by a different child actor.
Okay. Well, she was cool.
Yeah, she was good. I think that you're supposed to recognize that she's carried over, but it's a completely different actress and a completely different. She's like 5 years older. So,
Yeah.
there is Juliet, the bug spray girl.
Oh my god.
There is. There is Robert, good name, the nerd who is a level, what do you say, level 50?
Something like that.
Something like that. Blood elf druid in World of Warcraft, and always playing his PSP.
Yep.
There is his younger brother Taggart. Taggart, 6-year-old, the coolest kid on earth, who has a pretty cool line where he says his mum asks him to keep an eye on Robert, and he takes his sunnies off and he's like, "Who am I, Dr. Phil? You're giving me nothing to work with here." I thought that was pretty good.
That was our first giggle.
Yeah, not even a proper laugh, just a bit of a giggle, because it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
There is, I can't remember his name, but there's a little blonde boy who is prone to vomiting, reflux, whatever you want to call it. Then there's the big, chunky, fat Ranger kid, who is the bully. I think that's it.
And all these kids are just so stereotypical. Like
I think that's it. Is that it?
I think so.
I don't want to leave anyone out before we move on. Is that 7? Because I said there was 7 kids there. Ben, Mullet, Phil's kid, Bully,
Becca,
Juliet,
and the 2 brothers.
the brothers, and the little blonde kid. So that's 8.
9.
9. Oh, I suppose Phil and Ben don't count because their dads run it.
Yeah.
Because they said 7 later.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the other 7 kids that we get introduced to.
Yes.
Yeah, are so stereotypical. You got Becca, which is like the smart, nerdy one. Then Juliet, which is the pretty love interest. And then the fat Ranger kid who's like, oh, I just want to stay home and watch nude chicks on TV.
I think he's supposed to be like 10, so that's troubling.
Yeah, and then the nerdy PSP kid who can't look up, and then obviously his brother, and then the mullet kid.
Yeah.
And then, the blonde one that is on like 10 different reflux medications.
Yeah.
But still vomits all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like ticking boxes here.
And it just... the mullet kid. Also there's Lance's son, who he denies is his son.
Yeah.
Who's in it a fair bit, but he's one of the bad guys.
That kid needs to be kicked in the throat.
Well, he needs a better dad.
Yeah.
Like at the end, he's like, "That's for telling everyone I'm not your son." That would do some pretty big psychological damage. To have your dad say, "That's not my kid. I hate kids." Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, at least his dad talks to him and hangs out with him. Phil's like, "Who the fuck is that? That's my son over there. That other fat kid. I'm gonna take him under my wing."
Yeah.
But yeah, the mullet kid. You don't see too many kids like that in movies where he has some pretty killer lines.
Yeah.
Like he says party up, business up the front, party up the back.
Yeah.
Which is that's whatever typical mullet line. But when he says, "I didn't sign up to be paired up with no skirts," when he's talking about the girls, that got a chuckle out of me, because he fit in quite well in most places around here. I can see, I've seen grown men identical to this kid at the pub plenty of times, at workplaces, at school. He's very
relatable.
Yeah, very relatable,
familiar,
to wherever we're from. Yeah. The bully kid is probably the most stereotypical, big, easy to pick on because he's a Ranger and he's fat, but he's strong and he lashes out and is quite dominant, but also wets the bed.
Yeah.
Which, that's a pretty common story, and he's clearly got a bad home life. His dad lets him watch nudie flicks, I think, or whatever he said, nudie something.
Nudie flicks,
yeah. And, like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's like child abuse. It's just like, ooh.
And his dad was like, "Oh, please don't make anyone bleed."
Yeah.
When he sends them off.
Yeah.
I can just see us saying that to our kids.
No, I say, you do what you want, and when they say, "Who are your mum and dad?" you say, "I don't know. I was dropped off here in a black van." Yeah, and nobody really does anything interesting. The brother relationship, Robert and Taggart, was taken. Maybe it was done in other places, but that was taken and then done in the Vacation remake or sequel, not remake. Sorry.
Yeah.
With Ed Helms, except it was done way better
Yeah,
there.
I fucking
And
love that movie. I know it's bad, but I love it. It makes me
yeah,
laugh.
I'm not gonna say it's bad because I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but I don't know, man.
It's also another like cheesy cliche movie,
Yeah.
but I think that movie's hilarious.
And everybody's entitled to their own opinion, even if they're wrong.
But I'm not wrong.
You can like whatever movie you like. We should tell everyone that. If this is your favorite movie, good on you.
I never want to meet you.
If you get into, if you have yellow pages or white pages or whatever it is, look up on your phone a business directory. I'm sure you'll find a psychiatric hospital to check yourself into. If this is your kid's favorite movie, take them out the back and put them down because they're not human.
That's a bit extreme.
Yeah, well, you gotta let them know. But all those kids, they're pretty decent.
They do what they're supposed to do.
The scenes between Charlie and Ben are so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
When they're like doing Simon Says and he's like, "Oh, wave to daddy." And the kid's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Oh, good concentration. I didn't say Simon Says," and just drives off.
He did say Simon Says, but he's not Simon in the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kid's just like, oh, get this guy away from me.
And he wants him to ride in the thing with him when they go on the hike, and he's like, "I look like a goober," which is true. That kid would get teased for that.
Yeah.
And then there's the montage where Charlie is always off in the distance.
Like he's in the bush holding a cheap camera.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, go. And then like falls over. And that was so
there's
strange.
Like four scenes where little shots of him doing that exact same thing. And then in the last one, he falls over.
Yeah.
But it's never established why he's not part of the group there. You don't see him like working on some part of one of the buildings, and that's why he's not helping them. He's just not there.
He's just off in the bush being a creep.
Yeah.
Weirdo, embarrassing his child for no reason.
At least he tries to talk to his kid.
I suppose.
Because Phil doesn't do
just
shit.
Completely ignore his child.
Yeah. Buck, probably the best character in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, we talked a fair bit about him. He has 2 excellent lines. Absolutely chef's kiss. When Mullet complains about going on the hike, he's like, "Look here, hippie hair." Gives him a lecture about, getting tough and strong and stuff. And when the kids say, "Oh, we're going to get cream tomorrow," and he says, Cream is for coffee." I loved it. That hippie hair made me laugh. There was a couple other things that made me laugh, but more like laughing at the movie in a bad way for how bad that was. More like an embarrassed laugh.
Yeah.
But those 2 lines, especially "cream is for coffee,"
you
cracked me up. I thought those were great. Maybe it's a dad thing.
Maybe. I do love a dad joke though. But Buck was really good, and he was clearly the kid's favorite.
Because he was actually there.
Yeah, but then the morning of the Olympiad, the night before, Charlie says that he doesn't want his kid to be anything like his dad, and he
rough.
Comes from out of the tree and hears it. But anyway,
it's like the Predator.
Yeah, and then he decides to leave like really early and wasn't going to be there for the event, which is crap.
Yeah.
Like he seems like a really good, genuine guy, and he knows how much the kids love him. But he was going to leave in the morning. Like,
yeah.
You'd think he would just tell his son to fuck off, and he was going to be there for the kids anyway.
Well, he's such an emotionally stunted guy because he's a military man, and that sounded a lot more effeminate than it was supposed to. He's a military man. That's better. I was like, he's a military man. And, that he's just like, oh, I can see I'm not welcome here, even though these more than half a dozen, nearly 10 children love me.
Yeah.
And Phil thinks I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
And that Dale dickhead is like, yeah, well, like this guy. He's the most responsible man I've ever met.
Yeah, my son said something shitty about me. I'll just go and have a
Yeah,
sook.
yeah, and nobody else says anything bad about him except for Charlie, and he's like, boo.
It just seems so out of nowhere because he's been there for them and done things that Charlie didn't want them to do and helped them out and was really like the main guy.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
But yeah, had a sook when his son complained.
Yep. You want to know why? Because whoever wrote this, and probably said, I was going to say said Fravage, Fred Savage, probably watched Major Payne before they made this movie. Because that is just ripped straight out of there.
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah.
Way better movie. We'll get into that
in a minute.
In a bit, yeah. The comparisons between this and what this movie does versus other movies that did the same before and after, like the vacation thing.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about, we went past the kids, but the bug spray scene?
Oh my god.
Your favourite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Juliet?
Juliet, yeah. But what's the name of the kid that likes
Robert.
it? Robert, yeah. He's like, look at her, look at the way she sprays
Take two.
Look at the way she sprays bug spray on herself. And she's got the bug spray spraying it on her face and her hair and her body like it's perfume. Like, I don't know what kind of bug spray she's using, but the bug spray we use, you spray that anywhere near you and you're choking and coughing.
Yeah. And if you get it in your eyes, God help you.
And she's just like in a model commercial spraying this bug spray all over her. That made me laugh.
And earlier, in an almost identical scene when he first sees her, she's like shaking her, same as she's, I'll keep that where it is so you can understand.
Yeah.
She's shaking her head like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she quickly rubs her face, but it's in slow motion. So it looks normal. But if that was at normal speed, she would be shaking her head like she had a bug on her and then quickly scratching her face.
Yeah.
Same as the bug spray scene. She would be like, psst.
Yeah, but it's in slow motion.
So it looks normal-ish in slow motion, but
So funny.
So
and then they
ridiculous.
also have a funny interaction when he's trying to talk to her around the fire and he's trying to tell her she smells good.
Oh yeah.
But it's just telling her she smells and she's like, oh, that must have been from the hike. That was funny.
So crap. Funny, but
So stupid.
generic crap. Lance. Ha 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 ha! You want to buy this land? Ha ha! Good luck with that, buddy. Ha ha ha! That's what he's like.
The worst character in this movie.
That guy must have been having the most fun, just being the biggest dickhead in the world.
He is not interesting whatsoever. He is a shit villain.
Yes.
A shit character.
Yes. But he's a good antagonist.
Yeah.
I feel. A lot of people might feel differently about that, but my definition of it is the protagonist, who's not always a hero, but the protagonist, Charlie, wants a thing. In this case, to run a good camp so it doesn't get sold to canola, prove to his son that, whatever, stuff about being a good person and whatever, be a good dad, and then towards the end of the movie, win the Olympiad. Lance wants, as any antagonist should, the same thing or the inverse. So where Charlie wants to keep the land in Driftwood's name and whatever, Lance wants to buy the land, so he wants the inverse. So they both want the land, so it's the same or the inverse depending on how you look at it. And then Lance doesn't care about kids, he cares about money. So he wants the inverse of what Charlie wants as being a good father. And then with the Olympiad, he wants to win it, Charlie wants to win it. So as an antagonist, he works quite well.
Yeah.
Very textbook antagonist.
Yeah,
so
he
it
does
works
the
well.
job there.
But as a character and as a villain, as you said, puss.
Yeah.
Just absolutely terrible.
Hate that guy.
He's
But
I
and
just
it's
can't stop.
He's not even like, because some movies will have a dickhead and you're like you're supposed to hate them, but they have some sort of character.
Yeah.
But this guy has nothing except just being a dickhead loser.
Yes.
Boring, and it sucks, and it's
Claims
annoying.
not to have a kid and openly admits that he peaked in life at 11 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not much more to say about that guy.
No.
I just love that. Ha ha.
Oh,
And he
his
like
teeth,
jerks his head up and he's like, ha ha.
and his teeth are so like in your face. I don't know what's going on there, if those are his real teeth or whatever, but
Well,
it's
he's
just
rich,
bad.
so I suppose they could get away with him having perfect, shiny, big teeth, I guess. I think it's just the man himself, the actor.
Yeah, his teeth are just huge.
You shouldn't make fun of people's
Sorry.
physical appearances,
Sorry.
especially if they're married to Will Smith, because he'll get you. Far out. That's who should have been in this movie. Will Smith.
Will Smith.
That's all the bad stuff and sort of the middling stuff.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of, I guess, other than the jokes, some good things, but they're still pretty bad. Like Phil has a scene with the bully kid. We cannot remember his name. I don't think they ever actually say it, other than at the start.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Phil sees that he's upset at the sleepover scene, and he reveals that he still wets the bed, and then Phil shows him that if you sleep in your day clothes, your body won't know and you'll not wet the bed. As someone, as pretty much every kid did, as somebody who's wet the bed before when you're a kid, it doesn't matter what clothes you're in. You could be butt naked, you could be in the comfiest pajamas in the world. If you're prone to wetting the bed, you're going to wet the bed. I want to debunk that myth right now. While we're on it, tomato juice does not get rid of
Skunk smell.
skunk smell. We looked it up because you said it was about poison ivy.
I thought
said
so, yeah.
They haven't done the poison ivy bit yet. So that's supposed to get rid of skunk smell. Even though that doesn't happen, that's not how that works. I've got the screenshot to prove it, which you guys can't see. Yeah. So he has that. That's a pretty good scene, I think. There's not really anything to fault there other than I don't believe the solution to the problem.
Yeah, but it was cute.
It was a good scene. On its own, I think it's quite nice.
Yeah.
And shows Phil in like a fatherly way, even though he's already got a kid. Charlie going to get Buck back from the train station. It's pretty good. Both actors do a good job. It's not earned. They don't do enough to have that relationship be rocky enough to fix it there. It's not earned in the movie. So I didn't like it, but it was a well-acted scene and pretty well written. It's revealed that Buck is still hesitant about leaving, and he was able to come no worries because he's retired, which Charlie didn't know about. And Buck and Ben, it was pretty good, but at the same time, it was just whatever.
Buck and Ben's relationship felt weird. It felt fine until Charlie's wife said that thing. She's like, you know why
grandchildren and grandparents get along so well?
Because they have a common enemy.
Yeah.
They're united by a common enemy.
Yes.
Common enemy.
Don't hurt yourself.
And I was like, oh, that's
only if
weird.
you're a shit parent and a shit child. Like if you're crap with your parents and you're crap with your kids, yes, they will get along.
Yeah.
I think on like a fundamental level, yes. Generally, it's a grandparent's job to rile up their grandkids and then send them back to the parents. But in this case, there is generational trauma from how Buck was as a parent, supposedly. That's what they tell us. And it's affected Charlie so much that he's doing the opposite, but also causing very similar damage to his son.
Yeah.
So when you go up to your husband and say, oh, the reason why your son and your father get along is because you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, because they hate you.
It doesn't work in a really serious situation.
And he's just like,
He's like, yeah, you're right. I am a piece of shit.
So they're,
That would have been great. Is if just at the end he's just like, oh, I am a dickhead. I am the bad guy.
Even though, like, he's not really. He's
But
just
they
a bit
didn't do enough.
embarrassing.
They didn't do enough. They didn't show it
Yeah,
enough.
I just see him as a bit embarrassing and overprotective, and maybe trying a bit too hard. But I don't think that is
Because there's
damaging or
not a
harmful.
good enough flow. More, it feels almost like more happens in this than in Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. It's so bizarre. But we'll give our verdict, and then we'll talk about the comparison with this.
Yep.
I was going to talk about something else, but I can't remember. It might be like with these movies. Doesn't matter. If I can't remember, it can't be important. Oh, no. I just want to say this one thing. There is a third Daddy Daycare franchise movie. It's called
there?
Granddaddy Daycare. And I thought that it was like and when after watching the movie, I thought, oh, it's probably going to carry on with his dad and like him and that, and then they're going to set up Granddaddy Daycare. No, it's about completely different people, and they get the license from Daddy Daycare, and Charlie comes back. I can't remember the name, Trevon something. He's been in a bunch of stuff. Big, tall, pretty chunky, fat guy. And at least from the first movie to the second movie, Charlie loves kids and wants to do things for kids and like be a good parent and stuff. In that, he's just trashing like kids and stuff.
I haven't seen it.
I looked it up on YouTube, had to track down the one scene that he's in because I was really curious. Because it says in the Wikipedia thing, he like warns them of the potential impacts on your life, and I'm like, oh, like maybe something bad happened because he was so invested in this and whatever. But I watched the scene, and all it is he's like, oh, I just, every time I close my eyes, I just see and hear screaming kids. They're breaking everything. They destroyed my house. They destroyed my life. You know, I don't,
yeah.
but it did get a chuckle out of me. He's like, I don't even recognize myself when I look in the mirror anymore because he's been played by 3 different actors. I was like, that's not a bad joke. But it's like, at least in this, he's a good dad-ish. You know, he's trying and he
Yeah.
cares about kids. I really don't like that because these are all meant to be the same continuity. Even though this is a bad movie, they didn't muck with the characters too much.
Yeah.
But then in the next one, Charlie is just a piece of shit who hates kids now, which I think is just a shame.
Yeah.
But that doesn't affect this movie. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just in case you're going to watch that movie, avoid it for that scene and that scene alone. Anyway. Do you want to go first?
Trash.
Trash. Trash to the motherfucking max. Trash money, baby.
Daddy Day Trash.
Trashy daycare.
Trashy daycare, yeah. Oh,
Trash daddy.
trash daddy.
Anyway, this movie really took it out of me. It was, if we didn't do this, I would never have watched it. The first time I ever watched it was for this. And when I was a kid, because this movie came out when I was 11, because I was turning 12 that year, I didn't want to watch it then, and I was a dumb shit kid. I watched a lot of crap that I used to think was good back then, and I took one look at it and I said, nope. I know that that's bad. And 11-year-old me had some shit taste in movies. So that should tell you something. Yeah. So,
Basically, this movie sucks.
yes, as we've said time and time again.
Terrible story, mostly terrible characters.
Yeah.
The actors did okay,
Yes.
but it just didn't flow, didn't go anywhere.
It was crap, and I feel bad for the kids because they don't know they're in a bad movie.
Yeah.
But we'll
move on.
yes, we need to move on. In a minute, we'll get to the comparison sort of thing. So you'll hear the jingle. We'll be out of this. If you wanted to avoid spoilers, you can jump over the spoiler talk and get to this next bit. but who cares? This movie's so bad. Yeah, they win the Olympiad in the end, by the way, in case you weren't fully aware, in case you listened and you hadn't seen the movie. As every movie where there's an Olympiad, the underdogs win.
Yeah.
We're trying to get more into sort of a comparison between the lowest and highest grossing. You know, we usually talk about why one made more money than the other one. You know, why one was the top and the other one was the bottom. But we really want to compare the two here. For that year, why this year, why these movies, all that sort of thing. We want to get more into that. Because just going through the events of the movie and little things we liked and didn't like about it doesn't really go into what the podcast is about.
Yeah.
And we're finding our footing, so bear with us if you're listening to old episodes before this one. Good luck. But obviously, this came up against Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. This is a sequel. That's a threequel.
Yep.
Really, it is, but, you know, it's the third movie, but Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, which might have something to do with why At World's End was so popular, because Dead Man's Chest ended on a cliffhanger. Although Dead Man's Chest was more popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also just really, really good movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For what they are, really good. Good action, good adventure, good intrigue. I feel they're not the smartest movies in the world, but they're very, very fun.
Yeah.
If they didn't go for 2.5 to 3 hours a piece, they'd be really good to put on for like, they're better than this, but like for like a hangover movie. I'd actually say if you had nothing to do for the day, if you didn't have kids, oh my God, what a life. If you didn't have kids and you didn't, you know, you could just go out, get drunk, whatever. The next day you're like, I've got nothing to do for the next 12 hours. You could watch the trilogy.
Yeah.
And you'd be loving it.
It'd be a good time.
I'd rather watch Lord of the Rings, I'll tell you what. Daddy Day Camp. Yeah, I mean, you certainly can't say that about the Daddy Daycare franchise.
No, the first one was really good.
Yes. Although, how long has it been since you watched it? Because I think we put it on for the boys in the past 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, it's been a while, and it's not like really good, like such an amazing movie, but it's fun, it's funny.
Yes.
It's a good movie.
For what it is, it's a good movie. Same as the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. It's well done. There's a lot of heart to it. You care about it. This, you cannot say about Daddy Day Camp. You cannot say it about this.
No.
There is no heart. There is no soul. Everything feels fake. It feels taken from other things. And it makes sense that word of mouth, I think, would have destroyed this movie. Yeah. Because a lot of people say that they liked it, and I think that that is either misremembering or they're like they're mixing up the two movies. And like I said before, when I was 11, I didn't want to watch this movie, but I liked a lot of crap. Can't think of anything off the top of my head, but it always seemed to me that word of mouth ruins a movie more than anything. Yeah. Maybe not these days because there's just so much. But back when the cinemas really counted for something properly. Word of mouth would destroy any movie and would build up any movie. The press can release anything that they want about it. You can see all the marketing in the world. But if your mate Jono tells you to watch it because it's pretty good, that is 1,000,000% going to get you in that seat way more than anything else. Yeah. Which for me, that's always been that way for me. Unless I've already wanted to watch it, somebody else saying it was good makes me want to watch it. Yeah. Unless I tell you to watch something and then you're like, oh, wait for my friend Mac. She'll tell me what's good. Anyway, and Pirates of the Caribbean felt really like its own thing. And genuine. And yeah, it was a pirate movie and whatever, but it was the best It was one of the best, not the best because the first one's the best. One of the best pirate movies out there. No, and I don't mean like pirate, like Pirates of the Caribbean, like pirate
in general,
and adventure in general. It's up there.
Yeah.
Whereas Daddy Day Camp, there's 3 movies in particular that when I watch this movie, I think that movie did this better, that movie did this better, and that movie did this better. Number 1, it's not a kid's movie, but Dodgeball. Rundown Jim, owned by Vince Vaughn, goes up against World Jim or whatever they're called, and has to go into a dodgeball league to keep the gym. Similar sort of bare bones to this. You know, an underdog sports story. There's a few of those, but that was the first one that came to mind. Then, if you want a couple of kids' movies, Major Payne with Marlon Wayans as Major Payne himself. I can't remember any of the other actors' names. A military man. They don't have any need for him, so they send him to a military school where he trains a rundown unit of teens and kids to compete in the end of year Olympiad thing. Exactly the same as this. And exactly the same as this, or I should say, this is exactly the same as Major Payne. Major Payne, the military man, walks away at the end, but by his own looking at what he wants out of life comes back to it. Somebody doesn't have to come and bring him back. He just figures out that he's doing the wrong thing. And Heavyweights. It's a much, much lesser known movie. Ben Stiller in Dodgeball is like a more funny version of his character in this, where it's about like a fat camp. I don't know if they still exist. This was in 95 when I was born, 1995, and it's about a fat camp, I suppose, and the old owners retire, and this new psycho guy with a bunch of like German trainers come in and borderline torture the kids because they're supposed to be there to lose weight. And then at the end, they call it the relay, and it's different. It's got like, they have to finish one thing to get to the next event, whereas the other ones are just a series of events. And that does this way better. A camp that's not as good, although it's mostly about the camp itself as opposed to the rival. But there are 3 movies. If you have kids and you don't want to show them Dodgeball, fair enough. But Major Payne and Heavyweights, to my recollection, Major Payne definitely. Heavyweights I haven't seen in like 15 years or something. Maybe 20 years. Show them that, because they are way better than this and way better movies.
Or even Cheaper by the Dozen too.
Oh, that's another one. I didn't even think of. Don't think I've seen that all the way through. But you said it's very similar.
Yeah, it's not like a camp or anything like that, but it's, you know, the one family who...
Well, it's set at a camp sort of thing, isn't it?
There's a family event at the end, like a competition thing, but
which,
they're at their own like houses, you know, one's not very good and the other one's with the rich family and they
snobs versus slobs.
Exactly. So that movie also does this kind of thing, but way better.
I've seen a couple of scenes out of that, and I've seen the first one. Way better than this. Funnier, and I don't think they're the best movies, but funnier and again, everybody can like whatever movie they want, and everybody is entitled to their own opinion, even if they're wrong.
Thank you.
It's definitely better than this. See, I can rattle off a few movies, and you had one, and I'm sure there's a bunch of others that are this, but better. I can't say that for Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. And it's so clear that even when we were finding bad things last episode about that movie, it was like, this was bad, but all this was really good.
And like when you compare Pirates of the Caribbean, you're comparing it to the other Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which
is how you're supposed to do it. When you have a sequel, it is supposed to take everything from the movie or movies that came before expand on the characters and expand on the world. Unless it's like a spin-off movie, which this feels like, and that's what I thought it
that's what
was.
it feels like,
Up
yeah.
until we watched it, I didn't know that it was supposed to be Charlie and Phil coming back. I thought that it was like Charlie and Phil branched out to campsites and these other guys are running it now. I did not know that these were supposed to be the same characters until we hit play and they opened their mouths.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. 2007 audiences clearly caught on pretty quick to the fact that this was just whatever.
Trash.
Yeah, trash. Trash. Know your fucking place, trash. Yeah, it's not hard to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not much more to say. It's really not that complicated. It's just a bad movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end of that. And that's the end of 2007. So why don't you tell everyone where else they can find us, please?
Yep. Again, if you want to support us, we'd really appreciate it. We have a Patreon. You can also find us on Instagram. Our handle is @CashVersusTrashPod. And our listening apps are Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and also YouTube.
Woo!
All the links will be in the description.
You got there. And if you want to get through to us directly, you can message us through Instagram, but the best place to do it would be emailing us at cashversustrashpod@gmail.com, all lowercase. That'll come straight through directly to me. I've got it hooked up to my phone, so I get notified the second we get emails. And I mean, I don't want to brag, we get emails all day. All day. You won't definitely be the first person to send us an email. All day.
But yeah, please check us out. Tell your friends.
Yep.
Like,
share,
subscribe, share,
rate, review, whatever the hip new thing is. Glip glop, I don't know.
It really, really helps us.
Yep. If you like any audio clips, anything we've said, feel free to take it and meme it. Even if it's, ha ha! Just take it. We don't care. Give credit, whatever you like about us. And feel free to write in and just comment on YouTube, anything.
Yeah, tell us what we're doing right and tell us what we're doing wrong.
Be as harsh as you want to be. We'll take it. We love it. We love it, Daddy. Daddy Day Camp. Up next, I haven't got it written down. Hang on.
1998,
yes.
Armageddon. Start again.
Yes. Up next, we are doing 1998 with Armageddon, the highest grossing movie of 1998, starring Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, Liv Tyler, Steve Buscemi, Owen Wilson. Big cast, lots to talk about, lots of Aerosmith songs that we can't put in because we'll get copyright claimed or struck or striked or whatever shit thing it is. Yeah. So that's next week.
Yep, stay tuned.
This has been the Cash vs. Trash podcast.
See ya.